because of how 3E is designed, for those that know, they'll be able to confirm that 3E created basically the optimization mini game. Like prior to 3E, there was no optimization. You either played a single class, a multi-class, or a dual class character. And in second edition, there wasn't much difference between a third level fighter and a seventh level fighter, other than how likely are they to hit, their saving throws, and their hit points. That's basically it. The difference between a 7th level sorcerer, or there weren't even sorcerers. The difference between a 7th level mage, because they were called mage in 2nd edition, not wizards, not sorcerers, not bards, not warlocks. It was just the fucking mage, the cleric. There was a druid, and you could multi-class. You could dual class 2 times to get into the bard, but otherwise, it's priest, mage, and druid were it. So there wasn't a lot of variety there. So the idea of optimizing your character was a little stupid, which is why everyone back in the days of 2E and earlier, when you asked people about their characters, they went on and on about the magic items that they had. Because all your character's power, everyone's power, it would never change from the book. There was no optimization to have other than the magic items that you accumulated. Magic items were your feats, your subclasses, and all your decisions about your character were basically given to you by your DM in the form of magic items. And so players would get very attached to the magic items that they were given, because this dancing sword +4 is like the only thing that defines this character different from the other 10th level fighter that I had that got killed. Well, that fighter had a shield of reflection, badass. And like they would go on and on and on about their magic items. And I always hated listening to that. It bored me to death. I was more interested, even back in those tender years, I was more interested in what were the experiences and what were the accomplishments that we had. But listening to that was also tedious as fuck. It just wasn't fun listening to people carry on about stuff. But 3E was so different, because now it's like, how do you build your rogue? It's like, well, I dip out a rogue after level 7, and I dive into Shadow Sorcerer, and then like around level 15, I'll start getting into a Telfamore Shadow Pouncer, and then you just run. Now, we're talking prestige classes now. Oh man, I love, actually, instead of doing that, I would dip into the Psy Warrior for like 4 levels, and then go into the Psychic Knife so I can have that sneak attack damage dice. Super good on critting. And then take the Scout. To get that fast foot skirmish sweet damage. That shit was sick. Like, you could go on like 1,000 different ways to build a rogue. So once our table climbed from level 1 in the beginning up to level 10 plus, we were like super cemented into like this is when... this is about when Giants in the Playground forum started to really take off, like focusing almost all of their forum activity on character optimization and like Trent Monk style optimization dissertations about like, this is how you can build a super sweet Cavalier, or like if you're playing the Rokugan 3E game, and you want to play Crab Clan. Here's how you can make the tankiest Crab Clan halberd, War Maul build with damage reduction and immunity to damage other than adamantine, for instance. Like those are things that you could kit out and build. So now your conversations it's about like, how do you pimp your car? Like, did you go with the platinum block or the titanium block underneath your back fender? Or are you more of like a rim light kind of guy? Or do you have enough stacked into your build that you can do both of them? And hey, big dog. But that's what the conversation turned into. And so 5e wisely kept the game build idea by keeping multi-classing active in the system, by letting you dip levels by multi-classing, which is what 3E introduced to us. 4E got rid of it, got rebuked for getting rid of that that mini game, so they brought it back to 5e because it was so popular. But they were very wise in getting rid of prestige classes, considering what we understand their actual objectives are now. We understand now that Wizards' objectives is to obey Hasbro because it's a publicly traded company and Hasbro owns them. And so Hasbro's primary objective is to minimize effort, maximize profit. And prestige classes are the exact opposite of that. Paizo is still capable of cracking out shitloads of classes because, as far as I know, it's still a private company. Their objective is still to win customers by producing the best quality product they can. And they offer shitloads of content for free as proof of concept. Those that love us will buy books. I've been publishing stuff on the DMs Guild for years under that philosophy, and I know for a fact that it works. Most of my, if you check the links down below to a lot of my books, a lot of the books that I offer down there are called Pay What You Want, which is you can just take them if you want, but you can voluntarily purchase them for however much money that you want. And a lot of my most Pay What You Want books have a 5% purchase ratio, meaning that for every 20 downloads, one person is going to chuck some sort of money at it. My Pay What You Want sport typically between a 20 to 50% sale ratio because I bundle them with other books. And I tank the cost of the bundle. I have my Color Mana bundle down there. It's $40, but it's offered for $27 because so many of the books are Pay What You Want that I can drive down the cost of all the books because a Pay What You Want technically has a zero cost. So I can feed it into a bundle and cause all the books to become lower in cost, and it drives up the percent off, even though I'm still getting I get about $12 for every DMs Guild Color Mana bundle that's purchased, because most people, after they what'll happen is they'll pick up one of my Pay What You Wants, they'll look at it, they'll decide it kicks ass. I have to assume this narrative process because what I see on my numbers when I do a report is, 3 people just picked up the Point Warlocks for free. And then within the week, there's going to be 1 or 2 purchases of a full bundle that don't include the Point Warlock because they already got the Point Warlock for free. So the cost of that drops out of the bundle. But even though there's 3 other books in there that you could also pick up as Pay What You Want, people tend to just spend money on them anyway because the full bundle is almost the same cost as the core mechanics book. So I can get people to buy an expensive core book because I offer them a shitload of free content if they really want to spend time downloading these things for free separately before they go back and get the bundle. They can, but most people apparently come to the conclusion of, fuck it, it's really good, and he's giving us a lot of honesty up front. All my books are 100% free preview, so you can read everything that I have, and they don't even have to be like my Spellpoint book. It's $13, $15 or something like that on DMs Guild, but the entire book is free preview, so you don't have to spend a dime to use it from level 1 to 20 in any campaign. But I keep finding people are spending the full bundle cost on all of these books minus whatever the first book it is that they got, which is telling me that when people grab my stuff and they read it, they value what I'm producing enough that they'll give me money that they don't have to, so I'll keep doing it. And I know that's exactly what Paizo does with their Pathfinder books. And so I have been experiencing this for 5 years now, that those same results of if you bring quality and trust people and show them what you're trying to do, if they love what you're doing, they're going to spend money on you because they love what you're doing. And that is such a foreign approach to how corporate looks at how to monetize IPs. It's the exact opposite. So there's the third edition with the prestige classes. There's so much work that goes into building each one of them to make sure that they don't break with all the other classes and prestige classes and feats and spells that you put in. The workload becomes exponentially more difficult to be able to make sure everything stays calibrated, which is why you have to roll over into a new edition, because you gloat and bloat so heavy that it breaks under itself. And the only way to fix it is to start over and start building new, learning off the lessons from the previous edition. Like 5e is far simpler than 3e and 4e were. Very simple mechanics, which makes it inviting. If Hasbro ever lets go of the IP, and God willing, they'll ruin it faster than slower, so they'll get rid of it sooner. So somebody actually gives a shit about it will take over. The lessons that we can learn from 5e was, yes, simplicity is good, but you still need to have the same depth of options. So like build things so they work together more so you can curve stuff into each other more. Like Strix classing. Make sure all, like if there's going to be a 6th edition, I suspect they're going to make all the subclasses hit at like 1, 3, 6, 10, 14, and maybe 20. Like there'll be a stacked ladder that all classes follow, so you can freely switch between these subclasses, which are micro prestige classes. Like some prestige classes were only 3 levels in size. Some of them were 14. So there's a wide gamut of optional classes that you can take beyond the core. And every time that Wizards put out a new book, it would have at least 1 new full class in it and like 6 prestige classes themed off of whatever that new full class is. Like Magic of Incarnum was a magic item, it was a magic attunement. It was like the first attunement system that was introduced by Wizards of the Coast, and basically you could attune auras to the different spot. Like you had like gloves and a helmet and glasses and 2 rings and boots and a belt and a cape. Like those are the slots that you could have, like you could fill with a magic item, which is like a very primitive form of attunements. But what the Magic of Incarnum did, for those that don't know, is it would take that it would take the helmet position, like the helmet the helmet slot, and the Incarnum would have a list of spell-like effects that were placed in these different positions on the body. So, like if you had Mask of the Basilisk, and you had it and you had it on your helm, and then you attuned and locked it to your aura. You fused it to your chakra. Chakra binding is where I got the lock mechanic for the martial power system. You would lock it to that position, and then if you lock it, you could petrify people by looking at them. It was fucking cool. Like it was insane the amount of shit that you could do with it. And so there was 3 classes that they built using the idea of Incarnum. And then they had like 3 3 prestige classes on top of it. So it was like a 200-page book of 3 classes, 3 prestige classes, like 40 pages worth of magical effects that you could bind to different chakra on your body. And then a crap ton of magic items, adventure ideas, unique monsters that used Incarnum. It was robust. And I'm sure it didn't sell any better than Strixhaven did. But there was so much tech packed into every fucking book. It was It was so delicious just eating up all that content. It never crossed my mind to even though I was illustrating books for third-party publishers that were creating alternate content for Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition or the D20 system. I do these illustrations and I'm like, these are cool books, but when I go home as a DM and run my 18th level campaign in Planescape, I'm like, I have no reason to use any of that stuff because I've got the Book of Magic, I've got Incarnum, I've got I've still got my Dark Sun content. Like there was all this stuff that I could feed together and build all these different tools with the books that, like they put out 2 books a month. It's like I can't process that information so quickly to decide that there's any holes in the system that need to be filled. Other people just build stuff, but game design was so young back then that a lot of it was just power creep, and you could see it. It was obvious. Like this isn't clever. It's just power creep. So we would buy all the official books is because Wizards is specifically pushing these things to work together. And if there was power creep, they had so many resources that would address it that it didn't feel like it was really a problem. It was the third-party people creating stuff that were trying to compete with the conveyor belt of information and ideas coming out of Wizards that were power creeping because they were trying to steal audience from Wizards. And the only way they could do that was by being bigger and better, because there wasn't better ideas, there was just more power. And so it felt very insincere. And so the artwork that I would do, if I was hiring onto a project, it was either for a game that wasn't D&D, or it was legitimately building tools that were that took the game in different directions. Like the favorite book that I worked on was both of them were by Second World Simulations. They don't do stuff anymore. But the two books that they had was Master of Arms, which was a book that was the first example that I had ever found of somebody taking, like, a fighter had like 5 attacks at 20th level using 3rd edition. And this system, it was like a series of feats that you would gain. You could either just pick them up as one of the 16 feats that a fighter got, or you could stop progressing as a fighter and progress as a Master of Arms, and you would gain a feat every level instead of every other level. Hey, Willie. Hey, I'm talking about 3rd edition D&D stuff and how it's comparing to 5th edition right now, so I'm kind of on a rant, so don't mind me. And I'm painting an assassin in Vine here, and I've just been kind of fucking around with twigs and stuff while I'm rambling, so technically I'm done with this piece for now. I'm just doing the line art. I'm going to color these in later. So that's the assassin vine. Here's our roper. Here's our shambling mound. Here's a ghoul. Here's a type of skeleton that's covered in these black crystals that are stabby and damage resistancy, called the long dead skeleton. This is a fresh dead. It's full of this rotting tissue inside of them. So if you hit them with a weapon, they explode and barf out this poisonous fungus everywhere. That if it hits you, is a stinking cloud effect that causes you to throw up instead of taking actions. So it disables, if you're within melee range of the creature and you hit it, there's a chance that you're not going to be able to take any more action. So you have to run away from it or start using ranged attacks or like hit and run stuff, or coordinating your efforts so that you can knock these things down without destabilizing without taking away your character's action economy and getting overwhelmed by them. Fun stuff. But I was ranting about, Master of Arms. What it would do was it would have techniques like with a spear. If you gave up 2 of your attacks during an attack action in a full attack, a fighter again could have up to 5 attacks by 20th level. It's like if you surrender 2 of your attacks, you could do a spinning thing with your spear, so you could attack 3 people around you. So you're making 1 attack, you're giving up 2, and you get 3 attacks, and all of those attacks is equal, like it's like a +3 bonus to hit or something, or like does double damage. It's like you're getting it was having you eat your action economy to have bigger effects, or like area of attack effects or whatever, which is what a lot of my martial power stuff that we develop on Tuesdays. I've got a separate stream in my channel called Martial Powers. It's like a martial magic system, kind of inspired honestly by that Martial Powers, by that Master of Arms idea. Ooh, we're doing an OTUG now, so cool. We're just gonna kind of fluffle some stuff in here like we do, and let this thing kind of manifest itself. I know what an OTUG looks like, so we'll do that. But that was like when I was going to do artwork for a company, I was really interested in what's the project, because I know I wasn't really making a living off of artwork. So if I chose a project, it was going to be a project that I'd get free swag for. They'd always send me a book for free. So if I thought the concepts were cool, I wanted the book. So hey, if I do some sketches here for you, or do a cover or something, you're going to send me all the books that are related to this thing for free, right? Yeah, awesome. So free content. And then on top of it, I could feel proud about having that book at my table, because it's something I was legitimately excited about being involved in the creation. So that was one of the books. I know there's some text going on down there. Hold on. Right on, Willie. Well, I'm here 6 days a week, my dude. So if at the end of the stream, if I'm worth your time, like, subscribe, bell icon, blah blah blah. Love to have you. I'm trying. My first milestone is 500, subscribers, so I can start. When I start doing Kickstarters, I can start advertising them on the ribbon of my YouTube channel. So I think that's how that works. I'll find out. But anyway, thanks, man. So, and the other book that Second World Simulation created that I loved was called Second World Simulation. It was basically like there was a modern world and then there was the fantasy world, and there were gates that could pass between them. So like you could import a shotgun or something from the real world, and you could take magic. You could take like magic potions or scrolls from the magic world and bring them to the mundane world, so you can cross back and forth across the veil that way. And this was the first D20 third edition sort of game that I had seen that approached it. It wasn't actually D&D. It was kind of defaulting to, you can use your, whatever fantasy, like whatever D20 fantasy setting that you like with this. But here's some of the ideas behind it, X, Y, and Z. And since gold wasn't really a thing that you can tow around in the modern world, one of the things that Second World developed was the idea of influence. And so influence basically converted into 1,000 gold pieces, but it would scale as you went up in levels. So instead of getting if you're going to help this kingdom defeat the dragon, the dragon might have a dragon horde that you may be able to drag away before someone else steals it. But more importantly, you're also going to gain a few points of influence in the kingdom that requested your help. And with a successful mission, you now have influence over the quest giver, your patron. And that influence converts into basically a stacking bonus. Whatever your influence level was, would be the plus bonus that you would get on your diplomacy checks or any kind of skill checks or ability checks that you're making related to that patron. And every time you gained a point of influence with somebody, you gain a negative point of influence with somebody somewhere else, and you might not necessarily even know who it was. But you are now on somebody's radar that doesn't like who you're helping. So if you continue to help them, they continue to like you less and less until it becomes like a legit problem that you've got people attacking you now. And that sounds pretty old. That sounds pretty obvious now. But back in 2002, that was the idea of converting renown and influence into a mechanic that would make changes to your influence rolls. That was pretty revolutionary stuff. And this was the first company I'd seen presenting that idea. So I was really proud to participate with those guys because they were doing cool, innovative stuff that was very different from what Wizards was doing, but didn't compete. It wasn't competing with Wizards. It wasn't trying to make a better wizard or make a better spell. It was if we manipulate mechanics and resources this way, these are different things that we can do with your character, and everything else that Wizards has done is still completely valid. And it was a really cool way to approach the game. But it didn't ever really connect with me until the Ravnica book came out, that I could be doing this stuff too. I have valid ideas. But until Ravnica came out, I never had an idea that I thought was really innovative. It's why would someone buy this thing? Until then, I was just basically doing homebrew stuff, just making decisions about what makes sense for a campaign, but not building rules that were tested. That was a foreign idea. I was just fucking around. I was a 22-year-old kid just dicking around with my friends after work. So I didn't have any real aspirations at the time, but I was a huge Magic the Gathering enthusiast too. So when in 5th edition, when the company that created Magic the Gathering was finally creating role-playing games for Magic the Gathering, it was so disappointing that there was no color mana. And I was that's when I realized, Wizards' philosophy is to minimize the system. So whatever narrative can cover for color mana, I can just say I'm using white mana. I'm just going to pretend my spells are white. And that narrative feel is as far as, I mean, Wizards didn't even address that. They never mentioned color once in any of the MTG books. I'm like, okay, we're never going to get color mana. I need to figure it out. And no one else online had figured it out at the time. This is like 5 years ago. It's like at the time, no one else had figured it out. So it's like, I guess I'm the one. So let's get to work. And a year and a half later, I started publishing those books. And as far as I can tell, I'm still like the defining authority on color magic in 5e games. So it's because I've never seen anyone even attempt it. So, but I've got 150 pages worth of, hey, here's how you can fuck around with Magic the Gathering in your 5e game. And, the martial power system is allowing us to have all 13 classes use the same color mana resource together. But then on top of it, it also creates an elemental magic system so you can do airbender stuff. Fucking great. It's still, with complete modesty, I will say I don't understand why I am the one that created these things, but I am infinitely proud that I am. And that really locked in for me that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. This is my purpose. Like, me doing artwork and building RPGs, as stupid as it sounds, me inventing systems to express game mechanics and illustrate them so they look cool is apparently my shtick. So I'm really proud of that. Right on, man. Are you talking about like MTG stuff or like Magic the Gathering? Fucking love that shit, man. I can go on. I can literally go on all day about MTG shit. I love it. I had to put a lot of it on hold because Spelljammer caught me on fire. Of like, we can do this better. And like the same thing with the color mana, the Spelljammer. I do artwork for Spelljammer, the Spelljammer book that I'll be publishing. I do the artwork for that every morning, and I'm hoping to have it done early January. But that there's good possibility that timeline is going to get skewed. But we just do what the muse tells us to do, and at the back end of it, the book is already fucking awesome. So it's my best work to date. It is visually, it's my best work, and mechanically, it's my best. It's my best. It's my best. So, and then in 2025, when Wizards updates 5e, I'll also be updating all of the color mana books. I had to because of Spelljammer, I had to put my Spell Point Sorcerer on hold, but I've completely upended how sorcerers like operate, so they are incredibly different from Wizards, and like the wizard class and the bard, like they have as much a unique identity as the warlock does, even if everyone is using spell points like as a mana resource system. I'm really excited about it, and I'll be able to pick that up once we get, like, when this adventure is done and the Spelljammer book is done. Then we'll be leaning full tilt for the rest of 2014 into finishing up all the color mana mechanic stuff that I'm doing, the martial power system, so that all 13 classes have the same color mana system that they can use. So you can have like a Gruul barbarian that's using red and green mana to charge up different like rage effects during rage and combat. Oh, fucking cool. Super fucking cool shit. And I've been playtesting it at my home table from level 12 to 20 for the past 9 months. So it works great at the high end, but I need to playtest the low end. So once Spelljammer's off my plate, I'm going to take one of my nights, my Eberron book. This Eberron project will move to my mornings. And then, so my Mondays, Thursdays will be open, and I'm going to stop doing commissions for a while on Saturdays. So I have Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays open for me to start doing the playtest sandbox game for the martial power system for people to come in at third, like from 3rd to 7th level over the course of like half a year, to beat up the book and beat up the mechanics, make sure that everything feels well, and for them to fuck around with it to find, things that are broken that are worth recalibrating and fixing so that that's a strong product. but that'll be able to publish, and then 2024 PH will happen like in September. So then we can rebuild all the color mana books to use whatever new tech it is that they decide to have for the updated wizards, and then we'll just be able to fold like the weapon masteries we already have as combat masteries inside of the martial powers book. So it overrides. Basically, it treats weapon masteries as cantrips. So if your character chooses to learn one, it doesn't cost any mana to use them. But they basically do what weapon masteries do. Like if you have the push mastery, then any weapon that you're using, you can apply a push effect to it, which is legit. I've pushed people with that. I've done a lot of martial arts with weapons. Not that that's worth bragging about at all. Honestly, the gun safety rules that classes and certifications that we learned was probably more valuable than any of the sword, spear, or knife training that I gained. But it's interesting. Just as a quick aside, sword techniques are identical to gun techniques in Japan. Like if you know how to use a sword well, you're also really, really good with a gun, because guns are piercing weapons. Like it says that in the DMG, right? That guns are like do piercing damage, but it's literally true. You're punching holes through people, and that's what swords and spears do. And they use the same lines and the same good posture for firing a weapon happens to also be really good posture for holding a sword in Japan. So it's really neat how that technology curves into each other. But why was I chasing this is? I don't remember what I was talking about. I was ranting about something and I lost it. Oh well. Martial arts wasn't the point. Weapon masteries, pushing people. Thank you. Like push effects or trip effects, grappling effects. Like we have things about like grappling with weapons, using push effects for different size weapons. Like I can take a knife, I could hook your arm, and then use the blade to sink into your bicep to hold your arm in place. So I can put you in a lock with a blade in your muscle. And if you try to move, you lacerate your own muscle and you start bleeding yourself out. So don't move if you want to stay alive. I'm taking you to the cops. That is a viable conversation to have when you're really fucking good with a knife. So it's like so you can push people, you can trip people, you can disarm people with any kind of weapon that you're proficient, that you are a master with. So the way that we approach weapon masteries isn't like, I like the weapon masteries that Wizards has presented, because like a cleric can use the push effect if they're using a hammer, which lends itself to pushing people. But a master of weapons, like a fighter, can just learn the push mastery and can use it with any weapon that they know, and they can push people's balance back by like using a crossbow to hit them in the hip. That's going to blow them back, and now look, they just took a 5-foot step push back because I just blew out their hip. Or like I could take a halberd and kick out your knee with it, and that's going to make you tilt over, and now you just move 5 feet. But neither one of those have the push property in their weapons. But if you know the mastery as a cantrip, you can just force people to make saving throws. But then like if you pick up Thundering Strike, which is like a modified smite ability, you'll spend a point of mana, you'll deal an extra die of damage, and with no saving throw, you punch that guy 10 feet. So like if you spend mana, you automatically succeed. If you don't spend mana, your target has a saving throw to not be affected by it. So your bard, like your bard of valor, or your blade singer standing next to you, they could have like vex and push and using weapons that are appropriate for it. Meanwhile, the fighter wades in with 3 attacks. He does vex, push, trip with attack. And he could either spend a point of mana on each of them and do an extra 3 dice of damage across those attacks, or he could save his mana and force saving throws out of you, but there's strength saves, con saves, dex saves, intelligence saves, wisdom saves. So there's a wide array of stuff to fuck around with different types of target. Anyway, that's what's that. But all that stuff that's on my Tuesday stream. So if you're interested, you can go check out that content. We've been converting all the martial class subclasses into the martial power system. So like the drunken master monk we did on Tuesday And so we reconfigured all the class abilities to work with the mana mechanics that we developed. And then after that, we found 10, like there's like 150 powers that you can learn that we have in the book. And they're all in the playtest document that's available on my Patreon. And so we then go through and we look at like what's 10 abilities out of these 150 that feel Drunken Master, and let's give it to them for free. And then your character can just like you get 16 that you can just choose yourself. So in the end, you get 10 for free from the subclass that you pick, plus another 16 that you can change every time you gain a level. But fighters and rogues and barbarians can change all their powers every time they take a long rest. And fighters can change one of them every time they take a short rest. So you have like this really fluid changing dynamic system that's no more, well, the short rest is a little bit more aggressive, but it's only one. And you would only switch it out like if you go to town and you don't need smite, like you don't need like heightened damage strike attacks. You're not gonna, you're not gonna be punching dragons across the room right now. So I don't need to know like the reach attack ability right now. I can cash that out and instead give myself, like I spend a point of mana, I gain advantage on charisma checks because I'm planning on having a conversation with a contact. So I want to be able to boost my abilities there. So I'm going to instead swap that. I'm going to take a short rest, get all my mana back, swap out one of my powers from combat to social while I'm in town. So like that's how fluid the system's designed to be, to let characters do that. So they're in some ways more dynamic and more adaptive to the current adventure than what even spellcasters can be, because they have to choose, like they have to spread out like how they're going to do stuff and how they're going to, like they have a different set of limitations that this power system is letting characters step past. So that wizard, like full casters become like these big flash bang, big rock effects. While the martial characters are dealing more with like hyping up, like boosting their own abilities and engaging with stuff more, making active die rolls instead of forcing saving throws all the time. Anyway, rant. I had a point. I don't remember what it was way back. Oh yeah. The martial power system was inspired initially by both Master of Arms, Book of Nine Swords, and Magic of Incarnum back in 3rd edition, because I loved all of those books. I used them all the time. By the time we got to the end of 3rd edition, we were starting at 22nd level. Savage Species, we would build a character. We'd have one, like Gestalt is you have two classes building at the same time inside the same character. So like you have like a cleric and a wizard, and so you'd be building the stack of both cleric abilities and wizard abilities at the same time. So you're like, oops, I just did something really... I'm throwing my hands around so much that I caused the nib in my pin to catch and bounce out of my nib. I've lost my nib. That's hilarious. I'll find it. It'll be on the floor somewhere eventually. Okay, well let's grab a new one. So here's my Wacom tablet, my pen holder, right? And then you take off the top. When you take off the top, it has all these little prongs inside of it. It has this little tool here. It's a little ring, if you can see it. It's a little metal ring. And it's got these little grippies on it that can grab the end of your nib and your pen and extract it, and you can throw it away. And then we pluck out a new nib. See, here's the size of a nib. You can use spaghetti, by the way. Uncooked spaghetti is the same size as these nibs, just in case you need to know that. It's hilarious. And then we just drop it into the chute. It locks into place, and you're good to go. So I'll find that nib. Hopefully it's not in my glass of water. I don't want to fucking drink it. Jesus. Shit it out sideways and have a fucking breech poop. Okay, we're good. It's probably hiding. Yeah. I'm now going to guess that it's hiding between the keys on my keyboard. So the next time I go across with an air sweeper, I'll probably find it. But anyway, back on task. Let's grab a crouch. It's 9:24. I've been at this, an hour and a half? Hour and 20 minutes? Where are we at? Okay, I'll give myself another 15 minutes. I'm in Seattle. It's West Coast. I have a day job, and I have to get up at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning to do more Spelljammer art before my work day begins. So I've got a pretty strict bedtime, so I don't like to play too far past. I like to be done for the night before 10 o'clock, so I can hope to get in, maybe 7 hours of sleep, maybe. I was in the middle of ranting about something pretty hard. Oh, yeah. Third edition. By the time we got up to 22nd level, we were taking like one of those entire stacks and building monsters, and there were so many templates. Like we had one guy, he was playing, he played a psionic assassin on one from level 1. In this Eberron campaign, we started at level 18 instead of 22, but regardless, it was a Gestalt 18th level campaign. So one of his stacks was full of assassin, sneak attack, and psionic stuff, telekinetic master. And on the other side, he took possession, ghost, demon. He took all these incorporeal, mind control, and possession monster templates out of the Savage Species book. So he had 16 levels worth of like paranormal monster on one side, and then being a mental assassin on the other side of it. He was insane, just a fucking insane character. His normal routine was find the biggest, baddest, meanest monster in the dungeon or wherever, take control of it, and use it to slaughter everyone around him. So my job as a DM was to make sure there was cool toys laying around for him to grab up and use. That, like, I knew the cool factor, he's going to go after the wereshark with 4 arms and double glaives. That's what he's going to go for. I know it. So I'm going to put that guy in there, but then I'm going to have a bunch of encounters that can deal with that guy. Because heaven forbid the wereshark with 4 arms ever decides that he's in charge and we're going to have to neutralize him. Well, he now thinks he's in charge, so now we have to neutralize him. So then they go into the wereshark protocol at that facility, and they are specifically trying to destroy that character. And meanwhile, there's another 4 people on the team that are doing equally insane shit with their characters. Like there was a time stop character that it was the Quickling that had time stop and permanized haste, and he had frenzied berserker, so he was making slews of attacks stacked up with a monk that was making like 6 attacks per round on. It was fucking insane. Like when 5th edition came out, it took me like 10 minutes for me to go, oh my god, I can run this level 1 to 20 no problem, because the type of damage and things that 5th edition characters can do is nothing compared to what 3rd edition characters can do. And so I was like legitimately like, wow, I love 5e. This is such a step back. What a breath of fresh air to have characters that are so simple and so easily countered. So I'm starting I'm finishing my 3rd 20th level campaign right now, and I've ran a number of Gestalt campaigns for like 20 feats, and I ran some E6 campaigns where your character never gets above 6th level, but the threats keep getting higher levels. So you have to keep questing for more magic items and rituals and favors and influence to be able to build up your ability to take on CR 5 times higher than your level. Like you're level 6 and you're fighting. Like the team ended up getting TPK'd by a pair of beholders that they were completely ill-prepared to handle. Like, they walked into that place pretty much expecting to get killed. They didn't want the campaign to end, but they felt there was like one of them was dying, and the other one was completely unhappy with the kit that he had built for his character. It wasn't fitting the campaign. So 2 of the 3 players were at a point where they were going to lose their character pretty much no matter what at that point, because they just needed to. And so they're like, fuck it. If we can take these things out, we'll reconsider the campaign. But if we get ourselves killed by these beholders, then they're trying to rescue a colony of whisper gnomes from a pair of beholders that basically went in and took over their community. So they were trying to go in and fight a pair of beholders in their lair with an army of slave drones that they didn't want to kill. So it was a really fucking tough fight for them at 6th level. But that's the threat that they decided to take on with no backup. So naturally, they got slaughtered. And they're like, no, that was a good death. That was a good death. And so they were happy, they were content, and then we moved on to doing that was actually a Dark Sun campaign in 3rd edition, and we from there we moved on to we actually started doing Cypher after that. That was the last 3rd edition campaign that we ran. It was a Dark Sun Gestalt 6e campaign for. They got to level 6, and then they were able to stack on another 20 feats, which is an extra 100,000 experience points that you accumulate as a 6th level character. That's a lot of Mai Tais. So they played that campaign for well over a year, and was doing all sorts of fun fucking shit with it. It was a great campaign. But after a while, the threat ratchets up so high. It's like, this is like a never-ending story. Let's change. After a while, E6 campaigns just kind of have to end because they never end. It just gets worse and worse and worse until the team TPKs or everyone decides to cash in before they die. That's basically how E6 games roll. When this campaign ends, instead of me building another 1 to 20 campaign, because these are all brand new players, none of them ever played D&D before. So it was a table. It started off as 5, and we lost some over time, which you can expect. Over the course of a 20-level campaign, unless they've successfully ran through a full 1 to 20 campaign with you, you're going to lose 2 out of your 5 players. So you want to start with 5 so you can end with 2. Because by the time you get to 12th level, the story is so inbred that if you try to recruit somebody new, they're just going to bounce off of it because there's like so much history that they don't get. They'll never feel like they're actually part of the game. That they'll always feel like a guest. I've seen it happen over and over and over again. If you bring in new people, you got to start over the game. Brand new game. Let's go. Make it. You gotta put them in at the same foot as everyone else. Otherwise, they're always going to feel like they're on the outside. It doesn't matter how good spirited they are, how much of a sport they are, how much of a veteran they are. If they aren't there the first time somebody bleeds, it's not their campaign. That's probably the best piece of advice I can give to anybody tonight. If you have a new player, you have to start all over. It can be in the same world, it can be involving a lot of the same stuff, but it has to be from a completely different direction with completely new characters so everyone's on even footing, so the new guy feels just as new as everyone else. That's really important. So anyway, that's my experience anyway. If anyone else has examples of me being incorrect, then that's your experience, and it won't change mine. But it's nice to have a different perspective so that I don't have to sound so fucking high and mighty all the time. I think I want to put some extra teeth in here. I don't think I've heard that advice anywhere out there in YouTube before. Like, there's a lot of people that offer advice on how to run campaigns and stuff, but I listen to a lot of it to see if there's anything new that's ever going to come out. And I don't think I've ever heard anyone talking about, like, the table politics and small team. Like, I am really, as a side hobby, I'm really invested in small team psychology. Like ranking orders and who can make a decision on behalf of the group, who has veto power in that group, how did those dynamics grow, like who becomes queen bitch, who's got the biggest tits, So like that stuff, all that stuff actually exists, and you can observe it in groups. Especially like I spent a lot of time in college observing small cliques that would operate together in an open environment where there are like adults with no supervision. How are they going to treat each other? And the same high school hierarchy sort of idea would evolve out of those interactions, because they're coming out of high school with no supervision. Of course, they're going to start clicking. So you can really see these things play out, but they play out at tables too. So once you understand, like, who's your shot caller, who's going to actually make the decision. When shit's hitting the fan and everyone thinks they're going to die, who is it at your table? Do you have someone at your table that steps up and becomes the piglet and will climb up and stick their head in the beehive to get some honey? Like, there's someone who's going to be that person, and that's ultimately who your leader is going to end up being. So you got to look at that sort of stuff and use that to make sure that the games that you're building are going to be able to sustain themselves. Because if you understand the social role that each player at your table is what role they're filling at the table, you can better understand how you need to build your game around their social status and their standing and how they like to interact in the table so that they stay locked in. If you're fulfilling what makes them feel satisfied being part of the table while also providing a narrative and an ongoing pressured timeline with a plot that they're emotionally engaged in as well, you can pretty much guarantee the only reason those people are going to leave your game is if they're leaving your town by either death or just literally moving. You'll lock those players in for fucking ever because you're providing them with both their social needs in a group, and you're recognizing what their social role is that they're comfortable playing, and you're helping them be in that space in a healthy manner instead of like bullying them into a subservient position. If they don't like taking the spotlight, then you learn how to angle the light in their direction so they can have some feedback, but make sure you pull the light away from them so they don't scurry off into the shadows. Like, you got to pay attention to that shit. And so the way that team, you have to just watch who talks a lot. That's going to be, and who fights that person, because there's dark energies too of people that just like to watch tables burn, not because they're evil, but because they hate order and like they're chaotic people. They naturally want to disrupt whatever system they see put in place because they always think if something new happens, it's potentially better than what we've already experienced. And if your personality is rubbing against me wrong, I'm going to nuke this campaign so I can knock you down off of your high horse a little bit to maybe destabilize the group dynamics, the social standing. This is the classic. Who was it? I'm losing it. It was in Voltron. It was Lance was the leader, and it wasn't Sven who was the dark energy. It was, I forgot his name, but he ended up dying. But he was the dark horse. He was the Han Solo, the anti-hero that injected that chaos that would bounce off of Lance the leader and disrupt the order of the group. But when they realized why they were doing it, why that dark horse was doing what he was doing, it would create a deeper emotional bond with the other people on the team because they're understanding why he's actually trying to help people in the worst way possible. Like, that's an archetype. And if you can understand these different archetype roles at your tables, not only in your characters but in the players, then you're going to lock them into that environment a lot more. And it's kind of hard to hypothesize or create scenarios to exemplify this stuff. It's just something you have to just invest time in learning what these things are by studying psychology and looking at books and listening to people on YouTube that talk about team building dynamics a lot. Like Simon Sinek is he's a consultant that works with corporations on building teams and cultures. He's amazing to listen to because all he talks about is small team dynamics, and it's really informative stuff. One of my favorite people to listen to on YouTube. Highly recommended. But when I was growing up as a kid, I got bullied a lot because I'm legally blind, so I don't see so good, so I'm an easy target in the sun. And I was in Missouri, where bullying is one of the only things you have to do other than tipping cows. And I was small. I didn't gain mass, muscle, and bulk until 17, when I was about to head off to college, and school was over. And I was now old enough not to have bullies anymore. That was all just disintegrating. So by the time my body evolved to a place where I wouldn't be able to be bullied anymore, bullying wasn't a thing anymore. So I spent most of my childhood learning how to outsmart and out-strategize the people that I expected to, beat me up. And so if I could outmaneuver them, I could stay safe. So I spent a lot of time studying that stuff, and it just happened that all that interest translated over to being able to look at small team tactics, small team dynamics, and small team psychology. just happened to translate very, very well. So, sorry, I'm trying to backtrack because I went down a rabbit hole. We're talking about small team dynamics because we were talking about tables blowing up because we were talking about it was pointless to bring somebody new in. Oh yeah, we were talking about Dark Sun being, it was my last Gestalt game in 3E. 3E was so much easier to run than 5E was because the type of things that characters can do in 5E are insignificant compared to what 3E characters were capable of doing, statistically. I've been indoctrinated into 5E long enough now that when I look at something, I recognize that's broken, that's breaking the balance of the game, that was created in bad faith. But at the same time, my brain immediately clicks off like 4 or 5 ways I can defeat that as a DM because I've dealt with that in 3E already. Because everything that's in 5E was like 3 times worse in 3E. It was like way, way worse in 3E. And so when you're running Gestalt campaigns at 22nd level for like 4 months at a time and churning out content twice a week for it, you get pretty fucking good at knocking down high-level characters. Like I got into stat damage a lot for a while. And so the team was fighting, at one point at 22nd level, the team was fighting Illithid warriors that had like 10 levels of Psychic Blade. So, and they were using 3E Sanic rules. So these Illithid had basically unlimited mana pools as long as they were doing only one thing per round. So what they would do one thing per round was they would charge a bolt of psychic energy like Psylocke, and when they hit you with it, they just choose which ability score you would take damage. And there was nothing you could do about it. It's like, flick, here, take D8 plus 3 Constitution damage. Get wrecked, shit. And so the team would have to deal with it. Like they'd have to burn through restore spells every level, like 2 per round. They would have to burn through these recover spells to get their stats back up, because you can have 300 hit points, but if you only have 20 points of strength, and I just hit you for 21 points of strength, you're paralyzed, and you aren't doing anything anymore. I'm going to coup de grace you. So like that's like a very effective way to be able to just and there was so much ability damage in 3E that it's like, yeah, that's just fucking life in the big city, and this is the level of play that we want. We should expect that. So they would kit out their healer to just have fuck ton of ability score. Like that was their hit point. That was our healing spell. Restore was our healing spell. But we were 22nd level. It's like restoration would be the spell that the cleric would permanize. It's like, yeah, I can just do this with a touch. It's like, great. That means that one of us is guaranteed to be able to recover every turn. And then like they can take it as like a swift spell at 23rd level. So now they can do it as as a swift action. And then they'd have their normal action open that they could now double tap people. So like even at 23rd level, pushing ability damage like that, they're still sweating round to round because they know I'm not fucking with your hit points anymore. I'm fucking with whatever your worst ability score is. And all my monsters that are skilled warriors can identify what your weakest ability score is and start targeting that. There you go. Like that's one example. One example of a ridiculous amount of examples. But that's a fun. I like that one the most. That because it's a Lithid, being psychic bastards. It's fun. It's really fun. Another one was their nemesis for a while was a 27th level Shadow Dancer, and in 3rd edition, Shadow Dancers could summon shadows, and shadows deal ability damage. They deal D4 plus 1 damage per hit. And a 27th level Shadow Dancer could summon like a 13th, 11th, 9th, 7th, 5th, 3rd, and 1 hit die shadow that would all deal like 4d4 plus 4, 3d4 plus 3, 2d4 plus 2, 1d4 plus 1 strength damage per attack. And like if like the full cascade of different creatures that you could have, and then you could start double stacking them. And whenever that shadow would kill somebody, that would become a shadow. So the villain would show up in a mall, kill like 30 people, and then send a mob of incorporeal shadow creatures after the characters. And the only thing they could do, dimension hop the fuck out. we're gonna yeet this dimension and recalibrate and try to get off her radar for a while. Like, these are 23rd level characters running for their lives, and like that's like at that point it's just a 7th level game, but your rockets are much bigger that you're tagging people with. But it's the same shit. It's just a different stat that you're attacking. And 3E was such a kitchen sink that you could do these things. Like, you could attack people's attunement. You could attack hit points. You could attack spell points, ability scores, exhaustion mechanics. Like, exhaustion was like a stacking penalty. -1, -2, -3, and there didn't have to be a limit to it if you didn't want to. So you could have creatures that did exhaustion that would just deal, would make every time you roll a die, a d20 or any damage die, it would drop it by 1. And until the point was like, I cast a spell at you and you have like a +6 on your saving throw to resist it. It's like, I am fucked. I can't do anything. So then you get tagged with a hold person spell and you're like -8 on your saving throw against it. And they're making saves against dexterity instead of wisdom. So now your cleric and your wizard are getting wrecked. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. So when 5e came out, I was like, oh my god, there's, these statistics aren't that powerful. I can see a lot of ways to monkey around and fuck with characters. And so I've been, running 20th level campaigns off and on ever since. So this is where my current table is finishing. A 20th level campaign right now. When it finishes, we're probably going to do an E6 campaign for a while using Spelljammer, and we're going to have an asteroid mining operation where it's E6, so the characters never gain levels, but you can gain more resources and different types of specialists and rituals and new ships and new mining equipment and new connections that will give you better returns of investment for the ore that you trade with them, new alliances, new allies, blah 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 blah. So we could probably play that. We could probably play that for like maybe a year or two before it's E6. It's going to get boring eventually. But we should be able to play it out for a while and be fun for a sort of like a sort of pickup game, and then we'll figure out, and then we'll just come up with something else because we're always just fucking around and coming up with new things to try out. And use like different formats and different systems. Like the 20th level campaign we run right now, all characters are required to only have one class, but they have 3 subclasses, and they can be subclasses from any class. So, have fun, make up whatever you want. The rogue we have stayed with all rogue classes. He's an arcane trickster. He has the assassin, and he has the master thief. All 3 of those subclasses. Those are the 3 he chose because he wanted to be the most thiefly thief that ever thieved. He wanted to be like the ultimate rogue. So he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna do all that. It's like, okay, you're gonna do all that. Our fighter took the paladin took Battlemaster, Vengeance, and Ancestors as 2 oaths and an archetype off of the fighter. So he had battle mastery dice on top of smites and the hit point pool, two forms that he could take at 20. I mean, he bailed, so he's not here at 20th level. But if he was here at this point, then he would have 2 auras that he could do. Instead of just having the 1 at 20th level, he'd have 2 of them. Our druid is a moon druid, a land druid, and a dreams druid. Our ranger is a horizon walker, beastmaster, and arcane arcane archer from the fighter. So those are his 3 classes. Fucking sick, man. Arcane archer with a ranger is pretty fucking cool. It's a good build. Highly recommend.